Let's talk about tonight's game. We're going to get a little bit deeper into the game tonight. Weather plays a factor. Cleveland has the better offense at this point and is pretty banged up. Denver doesn't have the most potent offense, although people might be surprised to learn that Teddy has one of the highest average depth of target this year. I think he's top five. He may even be top two or three, if I remember correctly. It's not like Teddy's dinking and dunking all over the field. That's not what he's been doing this year. This offense is built to try to run the ball, but Teddy's got to do a good job of delivering the ball to open receivers. And again, we talked about it. Like, that's the idea of this offense, or at least how it was when the season started, right? We have a few good receivers that can get open against man coverage. And for this particular game, what sticks out to me is the comment that I've made over the last few weeks. Cleveland is okay if Baker doesn't play well. They don't necessarily need Baker to play well for them to be able to win games. And the reason for that is because the defense is solid. The defense is good. I will say the defense is good. There was a couple of weeks they had a huge couple of weeks, and I got fully behind the defense, and then they got absolutely torched by Arizona. And so I do think that this defense is good, and when they play bad teams, they're gonna play very, very well. The problem is tonight Cleveland is lining up their JV offense, not just without Baker. They're also going to be without Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. OBJ is questionable, but doesn't seem like he's going to go tonight. I haven't seen the full list. I haven't seen the inactives. They probably should be out right now. Tackles Jack Conklin and Jedrick Willis are both questionable. Conklin was likely out. Willis was likely in. Center J.C. Treader was listed as questionable, but actually probable to play per all the reports. Jarvis Landry was activated off IR today, and he looks like he's going to go tonight, which is great if they're missing OBJ, but they're two very different wide receivers. So the thing is with all of that being said, with all of those guys out, the offense still has enough weapons in Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku, and still has a pretty solid offensive line to get it done tonight. Denver looked good in their first 3 weeks, but they've looked like frauds in the last three. Yeah, I said it. They look like frauds. They basically haven't shown up on offense or on defense. And right now, they look like an average team simply because they can beat bad teams and can't beat good ones. Luckily, they've come into this game against a banged up Cleveland Browns team. With all the injuries to Cleveland, I still think they have a shot. I still think they definitely have a shot. Jack Conklin is inactive tonight. They said he was going to try to give it a go, but he's inactive. So looks like Wills is active and is going to play. That's good for the Browns that Wills is there. Like you said, Gabe, I think it's a big deal that they've got a backup right tackle in. I do think that Von Miller, while he's been solid this year, hasn't been the Von Miller that you would hope for. It's not like he's been just amazing at pass rushing and he's done everything well. He has not been a dominant player by any means. I think he could have a good night, but I don't think it's the type of night where him being incredibly impactful in the pass rush is going to make a major difference on this game because of the weather. I do think that obviously it does have an impact even with the weather, but I just don't. I think the offensive line is good enough to be able to manage. They've been without Wills and Conklin, and while they wasn't great last week, they were good enough. So yeah, and they're gonna run the ball, right? Like that's what the Browns do. They run the ball and then they rely on the pass when they absolutely need to. I think with Keenum, you're gonna see that again this week. Look, Mayfield is a much better quarterback than Keenum, but they're gonna put Keenum in a position to be successful, and they're not gonna ask him to do too much tonight. You can run on this Broncos defense. They play a good amount of zone, so if you can get them in the right looks, then you're gonna have some success both in the run game and also in being able to throw those underneath passes, which is exactly what you want to do whenever you're talking about it being a nasty weather game tonight and heavy winds. So for me, it just feels like everything still points to Cleveland just because of the way that they play. With Clowney and Garrett both being a full go, like it could be problematic on offense for Denver tonight. If Teddy wants to push the ball down the field, Denzel Ward has played really well this season. From a matchup standpoint, the Denver O-line they're likely to struggle with the Cleveland defensive front all the way across. Their wide receivers aren't healthy enough right now their wide receivers aren't good enough right now to get open quickly against Cleveland. The run game for Denver has just been okay. It's been okay, but it hasn't been super effective, and the pass game has definitely struggled the last few weeks. So, and with the winds whipping tonight, the run game becomes even more crucial. So I think Cleveland wins the offensive line battle. They'll have some stuff schemed up to keep the pass game short and effective. Like I said, they're not going to try to push the ball down the field, especially with OBJ out and Landry in. Like Landry, if you had to choose between either of those wide receivers for this particular game, you would rather have Jarvis Landry because he's the guy that's going to be able to get open in the shorter parts of the field versus what OBJ does. And they still have enough in Donovan Peoples-Jones and Njoku. And the offensive line is what drives this run game. Not look, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are very good running backs. Don't get me wrong, but the offensive line is still going to be able to make some room tonight. It still feels like a Cleveland game, especially it being in Cleveland. This game would probably be -3, and I'd still be happy with it. I think 3.5, Gabe, to your point, is kind of where it gets out of the reach. But I think this game leans pretty well towards Cleveland. The matchups just don't favor Denver. So I've still got to go with Cleveland here. If Denver does end up winning, I think they need a couple of things. I think it's because if they win, it's because Von Miller has a huge game. Teddy was super efficient in conjunction with the run game being effective. And I think they need all three of those things to happen outside of just some weird fluky, like, random turnovers that fall in their favor happening. They need those three things to happen, and I don't know that all three of those things. The likelihood of all three of those things happening in conjunction just aren't terrific tonight. So I'm taking Cleveland to win and to cover the 1.5.